Hello, welcome today to Biology 101, Evolutionary Biology, Chapter 1, Origin of Life. So, what is biology? Biology is a science that delves much into life as we know it. Through the bizarre throngs of web realities we call organisms, to the interweavings of these organisms with their surroundings, we call the ecosystem. Biology tunes us into much more than just what we can see, rather, what we can conceive. Microorganisms, tiny spores of mushrooms, to aquatic dwellers that feed on carcasses found in the seafloor, biology truly takes us one step further. It is the scientific study of living things we call organisms. Life, according to biologists, began approximately 4 billion years ago, around 500 to 600 million years after the Earth was formed. Earlier life on Earth was filled with conditions that are dire and inhospitable. Volcanic eruptions, mounds of carbon dioxide, as well as tectonic shifts, plumes of mountains of volcanic ash and smoke into the air. Amphibians, reptiles, birds, insects, mammals are all part of life on Earth. Here, we'll look at an amphibian, of which there are over 9,000 known species living today. Frogs and toads dominate this number, making up 88% of all amphibians. Note the physical features that allow it to adapt to its environment. The byproduct of evolution, selecting for a particular genetic trait over a long period of time. Living organisms are made up of a common set of chemical components, including carbohydrates, fatty acids, nucleic acids, and amino acids. Building blocks of most organisms are cells, individual structures enclosed by plasma membranes. The cells of living organisms convert molecules obtained from the environment into new biological molecules. Cells extract energy from the environment and use it to do biological work. Organisms contain genetic information that uses a nearly universal code to specify the assembly of proteins. Organisms share similarities among a fundamental set of genes and replicate this genetic information when reproducing themselves. Organisms exist in populations that evolve through the changes in the frequencies of genetic variants within the populations over time. Living organisms self-regulate their internal environments, thus maintaining the conditions that allow them to survive. Biologists postulate that complex biological molecules first arose through the random physical association of chemicals in the ancestral environment. The critical step for evolution of life was the appearance of nucleic acids, molecules that could produce themselves and also serve as templates for the synthesis of proteins, large molecules with complex but stable shapes. Key event in ancestral history was the evolution of cellular structure in early ancestors. Molecules called fatty acids play a critical role because their molecules do not dissolve in water. Rather, they form membranous films that, when agitated, can form spherical structures. Possibility of an insulated internal environment led to the emergence of the first cellular organisms. Reactions could happen in a cell that could be controlled within that cell. Since the inception of unicellular life, two types of unicellular organisms have dominated to this day, bacteria and archaea. And in this temporal setting, there existed a point where these two types of organisms merged to form a third type, the eukaryotes. About 2.5 billion years ago, with the emergence of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis involves trapping and harnessing UV radiation from the sun and using it to power as biological energy, the synthesis of large molecules. Plants take in carbon dioxide, water, and ultraviolet radiation and synthesize complex hexose sugars as a result of photosynthesis. Photosynthetic cells that existed in earlier times were likely resembling today's cyanobacteria. The time in Earth's history where there was a high concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere was the Carboniferous period, which was about 359 to 299 million years ago. The oxygen levels in the Carboniferous period reached 30 to 35%. The high carbon dioxide atmosphere, was the Mesozoic era, especially the Triassic and early Jurassic periods, 252 to 174 million years ago. Carbon dioxide levels were higher than they are today. Earth was warmer with little or no polar ice. Volcanic activity contributed heavily to atmospheric carbon dioxide. During Precambrian and early even Precambrian and early Paleozoic era had carbon dioxide concentrations extremely high. And what is the photosynthesis impact on Earth's life forms? These organisms that are photosynthetic changed Earth's atmosphere. Colonies of photosynthetic cyanobacteria and other microorganisms produce structures called stromatolites. During earlier life, there was no oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. As a matter of fact, oxygen was poisonous to many of the prokaryotes living at that time. As oxygen levels increased, however, those organisms that did tolerate oxygen were able to proliferate. The abundance of oxygen opened up vast new avenues of evolution because aerobic metabolism, a biochemical process which uses oxygen to extract energy from nutrient molecules, is far more efficient than anaerobic metabolism, which does not use oxygen. Accumulation of photosynthetically generated oxygen in the atmosphere for more than 2 billion years gradually produced a thick layer of ozone in the upper atmosphere. This allowed life to move on to land. The DNA in hereditary life. The hereditary information that specifies what an organism will look like and how it will function, its blueprint, is contained in the organism's genome, sum total of all the DNA molecules contained in each of its cells. DNA molecules are long sequences of 4 different subunits called nucleotides. The sequence of these 4 molecules contains genetic information. Genes are specific segments of DNA that encode the information that the cell uses to create amino acids and form them into proteins. Hypothesis forming. Scientists generally follow 5 steps when formulating and testing a hypothesis. 1, they make an observation. 2, they ask questions. 3, they provide answers to those questions and formulate a hypothesis. 4, they make predictions based on the hypothesis. 5, they test those predictions to see if the hypothesis holds. That marks the end of this presentation. Hope you see you guys later.